Hello and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sport. And some breaking news with the Springboks set to actually have a major injury boost for a change. Handré Pollard has been announced on the bench for Leicester Tigers, which means that he will be a contention to play the end of the year tour for the Springboks amid a Springbok crisis. Things are looking too bad for the men in green and gold, and a very big surprise as well, considering that we weren't expecting to see him until maybe even next year. Before we get into details, please do smash a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. Now, the entire sort of last 2 weeks, basically, after the injury to Damian Willemse and the issue with the Elton Yankees, has now been who will the Springboks call up for the end of the year tour? Because the thinking was the fact that we were not going to have not going to have Pollard, not going to have the Yankees, and therefore just have Damian Willemse available for the end of year tour for what is both the Springboks game as well as the SS Selective D. And as a result, we've been talking about surely the fact that Springboks will have to be bringing in at least one, probably two fly halves to try and sort of fill the gap, and potentially maybe even a third fly half in terms of three specialist fly halves and Damian Willemse, because unfortunately the France experiment didn't really work. Now, last weekend, for example, even on the Premiership, where Pollard was watching the match, they were basically saying that they only expect to see him, maybe around Christmas at the soonest, because he was recovering from a knee injury. However, Handré Pollard seems to have recovered from this knee injury because he has been named on the bench for the Tigers this weekend. It will be his first time playing for the Tigers after his £600,000 move to the club, the Premiership's biggest signing of the summer. It is an equivalent of basically a 12 million rand yearly salary for Pollard, earning the big bucks. And but replacing George Ford is always going to be a big ask, and that is why they did invest the money into Pollard. And yeah, I think this is a very big boost for the Springboks, because we were very much panicking, and maybe this could also almost be a bad thing in a certain degree, because from the end of the tour, for example, we now know who our fly half is going to be. It's going to be Pollard, maybe Willemse, but I'll be very surprised. Especially Willemse back at 12 for Stormers this weekend, for example. But the big sort of maybe the issue is the fact that, given the fact that he has recovered from injury, we are no longer forced to bring in new players. And whilst I still think we will have to add another fly half, maybe even another two, I reckon you'll probably see Johan Koos in the squad, maybe somebody else as well, in the likes of Monty Lebar, Chris Smith, or Jordan Hendricks or something like that. The issue, though, is that injuries do happen. And if Pollard did not play the end of year tour, we would have been forced to really extend our depth, which maybe in a World Cup situation might not have been the worst thing in terms of seeing what we've got out there. Obviously, it's a massive boost for the Boks to have Pollard back, and hopefully the next couple of weeks we'll be able to get a lot more confidence out of Leicester Tigers and be able to get back to playing his best rugby, which we haven't really seen consistently since the World Cup. But the issue is, for example, if we have a fly half crisis in a year's time, we wouldn't have battled anybody. So, hit and miss, really. The good thing is it's a massive positive for the Boks from a short-term point of view. You've got to get him back to the end of the year tour, and obviously from a World Cup building point of view, you want your fly half, your incumbent fly half, playing rugby, playing international rugby, and getting back into form. But for somebody who does have a bit of an injury history, it does sort of pose a problem where should we still be looking to blood more players at the end of the year, given the fact that we were very close to being, if this was a World Cup year, for example, we would have been in trouble. We would have been at a World Cup without Pollard and Yankees. We would have had Willemse out, for example, for at least one or two games, with the concussion. So would we really have had France staying playing fly half in a World Cup game, for example? Would we have Monty Lebar on debut for the Springboks in a World Cup situation if the Pollard's injury, which is now coming back at the end of September, was a year a year further rather, in the World Cup? We would have been in trouble. But the main thing, I suppose, right now is that he is back, and hopefully that it's actually very good timing, because he can play a couple of games, maybe even one or two off the bench, get back to playing his best rugby, and come into the end of year tour on the back of some good form, which we haven't really had. We haven't really seen Pollard playing quite a few games coming into a Springbok season, because he has had a couple of injuries in the past few years. But let me know what you think about that down in the comments below. Please do smash a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steven. I'll chat to you soon.